What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Chromecast. My name is Joe, joined here today by Gabriel.
That's me.
And Robbie.
I'm just looking at the flowing locks.
I got the flow going.
Yeah,
floofy
different.
today.
I got a big flow today. I don't know. I got some new hair product that's a clay.
Oh, there's
for
product.
the longer
I'm a clay
hair.
guy.
Okay.
I'm a clay guy.
Yeah, oh, dude, my hair I'd be curly Q over here.
What have we been using? It's been pretty curly.
Yeah, it's
while.
been more
I
of
don't
like
know it's the medium hold Cremo. I don't know if it's clay or.
I got that thickening stuff. It's pretty much
I had
waxy
forming
clay.
the
This is not
Cremo
wax,
forming stuff.
Yeah, I can't do the wax.
Forming cream, I think is what
I
it's
think
called.
that's what mine is forming.
So it's
cream.
more
Mine
of like
says
a little bit.
thickening on it, which I don't need thickening in my hair,
No.
but it works.
Find something that works and roll with it.
Yes, God.
So we took last week off.
Yeah.
If you're watching this and you're an avid listener or viewer on YouTube, you'll see that we didn't put out. Well, actually, on YouTube, we haven't put out anything in
a couple weeks.
A couple weeks.
Well, I was here and I tried to podcast by myself, but I couldn't figure out.
I was in Chicago.
Yeah. Robbie was in Chicago. Gabe was
I wasn't here
gallivanting.
Thursday.
Unless you're watching a Cubs game.
Were
it's
you in
Chicago?
You went to Cincinnati.
I was
right?
technically in Newport. We went. I don't know why we went up through Louisville and across to Cincinnati. It was the dumbest decision ever. But
71.
yeah, we passed through Cincinnati. We were staying on the river in Newport. You could see the Reds stadium from where we were, so it's pretty dope.
Yeah.
Went to Hofbrauer House. We were staying on the levee. If you know where Newport is, Newport, Kentucky, we were actually on the levee. So Levy, Stan Levy.
I like Levy. We were down there on the Levy. We were down there on the Levy hanging out. It was pretty nice.
Yeah.
But anywho, we were, just the guys were enjoying some spring break time with some kiddos.
Where were you, Joe?
Friday, I was in Louisville.
He's in Louisville.
I worked in the morning, and then we went to Blue Dog Bakery. Anybody in Louisville, go check it out. It was very good.
Blue Dog.
But yeah, it kind of worked out because we've been talking about doing a kind of spin-off episode around AI.
Yeah.
And obviously we cover Chromebooks and the Google ecosystem, but Bard is going to be probably, we don't know for sure. It could just go away in a month.
I doubt it.
If the government starts regulating everything.
Yeah. That could change things, obviously.
But we wanted to give our 2 cents on it, and we've been following this obviously because we obviously love Chromebooks and we love the Google ecosystem, but we also love cloud computing.
Yeah.
And obviously generative AI and all of this stuff is
It's a disruptor.
It is something a little different.
Yeah, I mean it's clearly it's taken the world by storm. Like I knew when something called Chat GPT, I mean the most clunky name I've ever heard. Not that Bard's great, but
right.
Chat GPT. I knew once like normal people knew what Chat GPT was.
Yeah, it was.
This is a big deal.
Right.
All of a sudden,
What does
and
it
was
stand for?
I don't remember. I should look that
Google
up.
it up.
I was
Google
gonna
it
look
up.
This up, but like I remember.
Bard it. Ask Bard.
What is GPT? It has to do with generative AI
Yeah.
stuff.
I feel like the T stands for Terminator.
Let's see. What
Wait,
does GPT stand for? We'll see if it's smart enough. I don't think that's right.
So I watched this cool video about the
There we go. That's better.
Omega Speedmaster yesterday.
Oh, nice.
What is the name of the guy? The used watch YouTube channel. Watch Something and Company. British guy.
I don't know.
Love watching his videos. But he was making his case as why the Speedmaster is better than the Rolex.
I forget the new one with the I think it's the Speedmaster that had that. Remember I was asking you about the new movement in it, the caliber 31 something?
It's 38. He talks about that in his video, but really cool story about
back to
subtitle, Robbie falls.
That was watches on watch.
I think
watches
you could
unboxed.
I think you could get into this video because it talks about the mechanisms.
Yeah,
inside the
What
watch.
does
I dig that.
GPT?
This dude buried the lead so hard.
Wow,
I went
nice.
through about 10 paragraphs. Where I
Oh
finally
wow!
got to this little
Seriously,
what the
does he have video ads and ads everywhere?
Yeah, there's lots of ads. But what does Chat GPT stand for? GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer.
Okay.
So, again, something that's that nerdy and that clunky as a name that all of a sudden everybody was talking about Chat GPT.
Yeah.
I knew pretty early on. And what's funny, early on was like, what, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, it's not been long.
It's moved so fast.
Right.
And everything is still continuing to move fast in this space. But it's a disruptive technology. And to be fair, we were kind of having a side conversation this morning just about the idea that tech in general, when most people talk about tech, they're going to talk about your cell phone, earbuds. Wearables, maybe some augmented reality, some VR,
cars,
computers,
laptops, desktops, gaming. Like it kind of fits. I think
cars
now, are an emerging tech thing. But most of those spaces, for better or worse, have kind of gotten a little stagnant. It's not to say that companies aren't pushing into new things. It's just the things that they're fixing now are the things that they couldn't fix earlier because they're hard problems to fix, but they're usually small problems. So like them being able to put a folding telescopic lens in a phone, like that was a hard problem to fix. That wasn't necessarily needed to make a great phone, but it's a cool add-on.
Yeah.
But is that enough to really drive consumer interest in a whole segment? Little bitty changes, like iterations, because that's where we are with smartphones. I mean, lay a bunch of slabs of smartphones out, and there's little tiny differences between them. And here's that corner these people cut, and here's the one these people cut. And
Robbie, the iPhone is innovative and groundbreaking every year.
Yeah,
that it's
the
released.
article I saw this morning said if Apple doesn't put a 10x telephoto lens in the iPhone 15, they might as well not make it, which tells you that they've iterated to the point where it's like that's the thing that people are clamoring about.
Like what else can we need? What else do we need it to do? We're not sure. Let's let it talk to satellites.
Yeah.
Like that was a huge portion of the last iPhone launch.
Right.
Like
when you're
it's
out
got
on a hike and get stranded.
Like for the 8 people that's going to affect. Like, but that's what's happening, and that's what happens with tech as it iterates. Like now, imagine a scenario where somebody comes out with the first set of AR glasses that are intuitive to use, completely wireless, don't look derpy, and you can put them on just like and program them with your phone, and it's going to talk wirelessly, and the battery lasts all day. Like all of those things in a wearable where you can see overlays of stuff that actually works and is helpful. That would be the same type of thing. That would be something that is completely new and would regenerate some of this. Like, oh my God, that's the next thing. Because I think eventually that's something like what was going to happen. Like we'll have something that is a wearable that's going to finally replace a lot of the things that we interact with on our smartphones. Some people thought it was going to be a watch. I think that was foolish to even think to begin with. But and foldable phones are fun. That creates a new thing, a new whole set of problems to solve, and for people to get excited about when those problems get solved. It's just the regular phone, the laptop, the Chromebook, the tablet, kind of solved most of it. Like they're pretty good. Like unless you're just the pickiest person in the world, like these are great pieces of technology that they're becoming commodity. Like you can just go get them. And so some of the tech sphere, I think, is just yearning for something to come and disrupt it. And AI shows up.
It's done it.
And it's done it. And that's why there's this huge buzz around it. Like people just want to know more. What else can we do with it? And it's going to have a massive effect on a lot of things, especially if it doesn't get regulated. Good and bad. I think there are positives and negatives, but it's disruptive.
That's the thing. If you've done any searching on it and you start to, because like my Facebook, because of a lot of the reading that I've done on my Facebook, I get tons of ads for. There's already really good AI being implemented in e-commerce and sales funnels and text and just marketing and advertising.
Google does it a lot.
Google does it, and it's good. It's really, really good, and these are really, really good things, and these are going to be the areas where people really benefit from that stuff. But the articles that you see when you're out there are like, chat, what is that new one, Chaos GPT, they're unleashing this on mankind. That's scary, and yes, there is a potential for things to go crazy awry. But this is where the conversations need to happen of, look, this is a really, really powerful tool that can have a lot of great benefit, but we have to figure out how to wrangle it in and be responsible with it.
Right. You just can't let people go willy-nilly.
Right.
Yeah,
so we've got some notes here. I'm gonna kind of use this to help steer our conversation here. And we should have included this in our notes here, but I don't think we did. I'd have to No. Was reading through this section here. Right. Generative AI.
I'm sure people listening are like, wait, you have notes?
Yeah, I have notes.
We have notes today.
I have notes today.
We have an outline.
Joe always has
we have
notes.
an outline. Yeah.
We just don't follow them.
I make the notes and he scribbles some stuff down.
That's right.
But it literally is like 4 bullet points of things to talk about.
This we wanted to kind of peel back the onion a little bit here and dig into some of the dangers and maybe some of the things that are surrounding generative AI, privacy concerns, all of these things. So we wanted to kind of outline to help us with that.
We'll define what generative AI is.
Right.
The difference between
AI
that works in like email. And
So what is the difference then in predictive AI and generative AI?
Right.
I think those are the two categories. We should have done more research on that. I don't know that I know the exact definition of predictive.
I think that's this type of stuff that you're typing your email in Gmail and it finishes a sentence for you.
Yeah.
That's kind of predictive language model AI. And it's in lots of different Google products. Like that stuff's not new.
Yeah.
Google's been using these little tidbits. Generative AI has a different meaning. I think we actually wrote down kind of like a general definition.
Yeah, so it's a type of artificial intelligence that can create new content. I think is like that's
so
that's like the biggest definition here is it's actually creating something. It's creating something new and original, whether it's text, images, audio, whatever.
Right.
And it says by doing this, it does this by learning from large data sets of existing content. And we've talked about this a lot as far as how it's going to maybe affect publishing and people like us who generate content online.
Right.
These things have to pull from something, but then what if it's now
it's a chicken egg thing,
creating its own stuff?
Right.
So it's pulling from our data to create things,
new
but
stuff.
then now it's creating its own.
Right, but
stuff.
from the other perspective of that, like we everyone has their own narrative that they have when they write and our voice that we write with, but we also function from a limited set of data. Not that AI doesn't have a limited set of data, but AI generally is probably going to have a much larger set of data. We've written articles where on the back end we're like, oh, we missed that because we didn't know this, or I didn't know that, or whatever, or we missed, this commit was 5 years old and whatever. AI is going to generally have a larger data set, which means that it plausibly, possibly, probably could create more well-rounded content in some cases.
As long as it's being based on factual content.
Right.
Like it's going to be better at parsing that data. That's why that's its main thing, is it can take so much of this data and create something out of that much quicker than the human mind can.
Right. So you have something like predictive AI that Google is leveraging and has been leveraging in their suite of products.
Consider the Pixel. And cameras have done this for a little while, but when it's going to take a picture of a scene, like how does it know how to expose that scene properly? How does it get it right so many times? And that's a learning model that's happened. It's a version of AI that it's helping it understand, okay, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm doing, Teslas do it.
Yeah.
It's taking in the surrounding and making a decision based on the information it has quickly, real fast. The same thing with the apps that it suggests, that in your app drawer, or if you put them on your homepage. Like those are predictive models that are algorithmically based, and but it's a form of AI. That's not the same as generative AI because it's not going and making anything.
Yeah,
it's not. Generative AI would be, it knew when I picked my phone up, I probably wanted to go ahead and hit Twitter and scroll to XYZ, and it just did it for me. That's scary, but that's more what generative AI. It's taking the steps and creating a method of something versus just offering up some suggestions.
Or you picked up your phone and somehow interacted with Bard or ChatGPT and created a business plan, created a new piece of artwork that you wanted to share for, a birthday card, it's generating these things for you.
That's a different version of what we're talking about.
So and I think it's important to note as well that there's some aspects of this conversation that have maybe been influenced. So we'll share more about that at the end.
Yeah, you got to hang on.
So what are some of the examples of this type of generative AI? I think the one that most people know about is ChatGPT.
Which is again crazy because who knew about OpenAI before ChatGPT?
Because before ChatGPT, came on the scene and everyone knew what it was.
Most people probably know.
The other one we have on our list, is it Doll or Dal? It's Dolly, I think.
I think Dolly.
I've always heard it's Dolly, basically.
Yeah, so that's an image creator, which, I mean, it's crazy.
That one was getting a little more public recognition, I think, in the techie circles before, obviously.
And you saw people changing their like avatars or their profile
Yeah.
images to these kind of like,
it's an AI
yeah,
thing, and people were like,
but most of them ended up kind of looking the same. They had this like almost like sci-fi look
Yeah.
to
what it
them.
looked like to me, they all looked like, those like Instagram filters, like Kenny
100%. It's like an overlay. It like almost does like an
Cartoon my
illustration.
face.
Yeah, it's like an illustration
I
of
was
your.
like, that's all this looks like. So I honestly didn't even, I was like,
I never even did it.
But then that evolved into what, like, Midjourney is the big
Midjourney.
one now, which some of the stuff it can make is insane looking. It's still, some of it has a degree of not realness, but some of it, I created some images,
some of the smoking stuff.
Yeah, some meat, like very detailed, described. Make an image of this thing, and like Andrew, who was our resident videographer, was like, "Oh my gosh, that photo is awesome!"
Shot,
and
man.
I'm like,
"Good job."
That is 100% AI generated, and now people are. This is where the cool side of it for me, is that what a lot of people are doing, and you got all these marketers out there going, "Oh, make your own YouTube channel and do this and that." But what people do is they go to ChatGPT and they say, describe to me a picture of this thing, and they give it a detailed thing to describe a picture of, and then take that description and put it into Midjourney, and then Midjourney creates, so you have an AI generated photo, and some of them are just mind-boggling. I mean, it's insane.
And the other one, WaveNet, using AI to generate songs and audio.
Oh wow!
That's
the one that's been going around. Is
the one
with,
Jay-Z.
Jay-Z.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. So good.
Who is that's doing that? It's a bigger band. It was like a band that I know. I can't remember who did it. And it was they're just doing it as an experiment. I can't remember who it was.
I can't. I'm blanking on it right now.
But yeah, it was shockingly good.
Yeah, and like there's been some of what would you call where you actually record the audio and then it changes your voice for you.
Well,
not
like
a vocoder.
auto-tune, but
Yeah, I mean,
just an auto tune or whatever.
Yeah.
Like doing these filters basically in audio that are, hey, I'm going to record this verse and it's going to make me sound like Kanye.
right.
So I think that's a good segue into what are some of these dangers? What are some of the things about AI that could cause some concern?
Get us sideways. I think we're obviously talking about content creation right now, and whether it be photo or video or audio. Like the minute that AI, and again, we're talking about something that can parse massive sets of data. So there are human beings that can impersonate other human beings. Jay Farrow, who was on SNL for years, is one of the most brilliant. Like he can sound just like Jay-Z. Like he could get on a mic and you would not know it's not Jay-Z. Like he sounds exactly like him, or Denzel Washington, or Chris Rock, or he can impersonate a lot of people, and he can do it really, really convincingly. But it's taken him, I bet, decades to hone this process, because he's had to listen, content in to hone the ability, because he even has, like with Chris Rock, the gripped fingers, and all that kind of stuff. Like his face even kind of takes on, so he's got the ability, certain people do, the ability to like hone in on all these mannerisms and the voicing and all that kind of stuff, and they can almost take on that persona. That's taken him decades to do. These AI generated ones are doing basically the same thing. They're just parsing massive amounts of data, and then spitting out an output. They can do it in minutes, versus a lifetime. And so
you've
that's
probably
the problem.
you've probably heard of deep fakes.
It's been around forever.
And a lot of that up until now was all getting generated by humans, and using software, but
taking a lot of time, frame by frame, and making sure the face lines up. And if you're going to do a good deep fake, like it was very, very labor intensive. I mean, it took a lot of work to make these things. There's that dude. Have you all seen the guy, the Tom Cruise dude that did the deep fakes of Tom Cruise? Well, if you see the guy without the deep fake on, he looks a lot like Tom Cruise, and he's a Tom Cruise impersonator. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so he already has the mannerisms, he has the delivery, he already has the voice. And so that's still a lot of work to make it look as good as they make it. Yeah. imagine something looking that good that takes no time.
Yeah, look
You
at
could just go
if
make
you-
this look like
if
so
you
and so.
Go on Instagram. It's Brian. I think it's Morrison or something. But just look up Arnold deep fakes.
Oh,
he does,
Yeah.
and you can tell they're. I mean,
yeah,
you
yeah.
can tell they're not real. You can tell they're deep fakes, but they are realistic enough that you're like, man. You would think that it took someone months of doing that, and it's not. He's got one that's like Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite, but
Yeah.
it's Arnold's face and it's Arnold's voice.
Yep.
And if you weren't looking at it, you would think it was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And
that's
so
scary.
yeah, and so you've got. I'll just kind of go through the list of some of these here. You know, you've got deep fakes and synthetic media, so just newly
Right.
created fake media, fake news and propaganda. Obviously, being able to generate compelling stories that also are created with the knowledge of what gets people going, right? Or
Exactly.
like
Right. Or how you
understanding
wanna
the
sway
data set.
something.
Yeah, that's
It's very scary
wild
because
to
all
think
of a
about.
sudden, so you take a divisive character like Donald Trump, for instance, and you get whichever party is wanting, like the far right or the far left, that, you know, the far left wants to demonize him, the far right wants
Yeah,
to weaponize him, and they can deep fake his face saying whatever it is,
Right.
because now you can also deep fake his voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, what becomes like, you know, valid stuff?
Right,
I
how do we
it's like
know?
we got Watergate tapes rolling around everywhere of people saying all sorts of things, and it's like,
Is that real or not?
Yeah.
how do you put any
Yeah.
validity on anything?
Yeah.
And that's what the thing I saw on the news a couple of weeks ago, and this is something that's already happening, and that's the scary side of this, is that there are people who are actively figuring out ways to do it, but there are people already who are creating deep fake audios of like college students and having them call home
Oh,
and say, hey, you know,
I need money.
and they're getting checks.
Oh,
and
my
this
gosh.
whatever, or they're getting, you know, and it's
Yeah.
like, that's the problem. And that's the thing. We can't look at this and say, oh, you know, AI it's the evil, whatever. This happens with everything.
Right.
It
Right.
doesn't
Scammers
matter what
gonna
it is.
scam.
This is a prime opportunity, and that's why. I mean, it.
Yeah,
unfortunately, it just is what it
you
is.
have to be, especially now,
Diligence. So
very
good.
diligent and critical of anything that you're consuming.
Again,
and
I go back to these books that I've talked about multiple times.
I was waiting.
it's
How long did
so
it take?
freaky.
It took him 22 minutes.
It's so
I knew it
freaky.
was coming.
Like, I'm in the middle of another book right now, and I'm so tempted to put it down and just pick these books back up and read them again now, because
Yeah.
I think
With the
I think it's
perspective,
going to
yeah.
be like really scary. But I want to say it was the third book, so things have gone. It's way kind of in the future, but something similar happens, like in society, kind of the internet fails basically.
Yeah.
So it's not that it goes away. It's just everyone completely loses all trust whatsoever in the internet in general. So the open web has become this place that no one can tell what's real and what's not. So everyone just kind of gives up on the entirety of all
Yeah.
of it. And if we're not careful,
Yeah.
we will find ourselves in that kind of situation.
Yeah.
We will be quickly escorted into a future where there is no way to know for sure what's real and what's not. And for most people, it's just going to be as far as when it comes to factual news, I'll go there for entertainment. But when it comes to news, I can't trust any of this stuff anymore. So,
Which is funny because, I mean, let's be honest, most news you can't trust anyway. This is just going to be different. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is going to could change the landscape of how we consume everything.
Oh,
yeah.
Anything digital.
Yeah, and I think
mean,
there's some ethical considerations we'll get to after the break. But yeah, like there's definitely just as a society, there's things that we're going to have to figure out, and I think that's why you see so many folks and even people involved in this industry saying, "Hey, we maybe need to pump the brakes a little bit here."
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to be careful because it's not so much like, oh God, AI is going to take over the world and kill us all. Like,
Right.
maybe.
Yeah.
But we're not there. I
Yeah.
mean, like that Chaos GPT, like they set it loose and was like, okay, go and, you know, figure out a way to get your hands on nukes and do the whole thing. And it was so laughably far from even having the capability.
Yep.
Because you got to remember, these are language models. Like,
Yep.
at the end of the day, what they're capable of doing is creating some content. Like,
Yeah.
you can't create, well, I will say, you can start World War III with some creative content. You can.
Yeah.
You get the wrong people thinking the wrong people said the wrong thing, and and incite enough agitation, you can.
But it's not going and hacking nuclear codes and pressing buttons. Yeah,
and that's what people are kind of scared of. Yeah. People are scared of that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Terminator.
And there was a guy who self-proclaimed novice developer or code or whatever. ChatGPT create now to clarify, there's ChatGPT that's free, that's open to the public, that only has access up to stuff that's up to 2021. Then there's ChatGPT 4, which is the paid version, and you have to be on a wait list. That's the one that can give you real-time data. There's a big difference. I was looking at the numbers between ChatGPT 4 and ChatGPT 3. It's the whatever term they use, it's in the billions larger database.
The data set,
Anyway, this guy,
that's what Bing is using.
Yeah,
correct?
Yes, yeah. But this guy created a malicious code that was able to hack like people's computers.
Yeah,
because ChatGPT is literally just doing whatever you prompt it to do, and if it has access to the data that you're needing to create, what we've done it here. No, we've not done that. We've created.
Sorry, guys. No. Sorry, we created the first Chromebook virus.
We've created, HTML landing.
No one do that.
No, HTML landing pages, JavaScript, things like that. It will do that because that data is available out there, and it can parse it and compile it faster than any human brain can. Because I don't know PHP. Robbie knows a little bit, but I mean,
not like that.
Not like that. And even though I know how to Google it and find it, doesn't mean I know how to apply it. It does.
It's just it's hours and hours and hours of research and work and failure. I think it's careers. It's lifetime of learning for humans. That can be done in minutes.
Right. And that's where so the last two on the list here were cyber attacks and job losses. So you've got not only this ability for it to figure out software and things that are out on the web, the information that's available, it can use those to create cyber attacks, but then also it has the ability to learn and take a job that used to take humans all of this time to do. It can figure it out.
Yeah, I would imagine
instantly.
There are quite a few, especially front-end developers. It's a dual-edged sword. Like there's part of it that's like, oh God, now anybody can ask this stuff. We've done some stuff where we've asked it to give us some code and stuff. It's not like it can build the website for you necessarily. You still got to have a little bit of technical understanding of where to put the stuff. It's like having a video of a great recipe or something. Like you still got to. Like I can watch a good recipe video and you could watch a good recipe video. I would almost guarantee you the food that you make will be better than the food that I end up making because there's still the knowledge base of how to put the pieces together properly. And so like developers could be looking at it going, I'll be able to get my job done 10 times faster.
Right. Yeah.
Knowledgeable ones.
And there's all the naysayers talking, they're coming for your jobs and all that stuff. And the fact of the matter is that it very well may replace the way we do a lot of things.
Yeah. Sure.
But just like when web design became what it is right now compared to what it used to be, web dev blew up because people that knew how to do HTML and CSS and Java and all that, there was a huge call for them, and there still is. But now, look at the amount of jobs that will be created by companies saying, hey, we need someone who knows how to prompt AI to create these tools that we're doing.
Yeah, because you look at 1,000 companies and 900 of them were like, we don't have the resources to go build an app.
Right.
Well, now all of them say, it's easier to build an app now. We still want a developer that knows what they're doing with it and how to get it on the Play Store, how to get it in the App Store.
Yeah.
But, so now there's 900 more jobs than there were out of that 1,000.
Because that's something I've never built an Android app, but I sat down with ChatGPT and using Android Studio built a basic fidget spinner app for my phone and tested it, and it worked.
Yeah.
Right.
So now, but in order for me to create one, but in order in order for me to create a well-honed, beautiful app, I still need to know what to tell ChatGPT to do, and then you have to deploy it and all that other stuff.
Yeah, it's this thing of automation. We've been talking about this for years. With just general automation in manufacturing and other things. Like it's getting rid of the kind of mindless, repetitive jobs and allowing hopefully humans to then go tackle the more creative and jobs that are more of a value to society, right?
And to be fair, like WordPress, that's 40% of the internet at this point, does a lot of that for you.
Right.
Well, we're moving blocks around in WordPress.
It's creating the code.
It's coding that for us.
Right.
And so Like it's the same thing. It's just kind of on steroids.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So we're going to take a quick break for an ad, but we're going to come back. We're going to talk through kind of how we can mitigate some of these dangers, and then maybe talk about some of the benefits of all of this. You know, we've talked about a lot of the scary stuff up until now, but let's talk about how some of this could be good. And we kind of hinted at some of it there, but and then we'll kind of wrap up with some ethical things that we need to be thinking about to leave you with a little thought, little something to think about on the way out. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back. Alrighty, welcome back, everyone. Did something change? I feel
different.
I feel like something's different here.
I don't know.
I moved my water bottle.
There it is.
That's what it is.
There it is.
Gabe said that he started a generative AI company and he left.
Yeah.
And he said that he's
sold
done.
He sold to some seedy characters. We started talking about ethics.
We started talking about ethics, and he said, "I can't be a part of this conversation."
I gotta go.
So I don't
know.
I don't know.
Tell you.
Let's kind of go through a couple of these because we talked through the scariness of all of this, and yeah, there is some scariness. Let's first kind of talk through some of these dangers that we do have. How can we mitigate some of them? So I think with fake news and propaganda, you always need to be. I mean, you should do this anyway. Like Gabe said, I mean, there's news outlets out there that have an agenda, and you should always, fact check and try to be, a responsible consumer of any news or information out there.
And being diligent to, I don't know, and not get sucked into the news cycles too. That just it's doom and gloom all the time. Everything's terrible. Like, you have to be an adult about some of this stuff and realize that you got to take some of this stuff in stride. And if not, you're going to go crazy and life's a nightmare.
And honestly. I think part of all of this is just being, especially now with AI, just being a little skeptical. Maybe not even skeptical, just being thoughtful and mindful of the things that you're consuming. Like especially with the deep fakes and things like that. Like this whole Pope photo. Had the internet like going crazy.
Yeah, the Pope in the big puffy jacket.
Pope in the big puffy jacket.
Because at first people were like, "Wow, he shouldn't be wearing that kind of stuff." Like,
yeah.
And again, it's one of those things. When I first saw it, my mind immediately went to that's an AI.
Oh yeah,
photo.
I immediately
that's so far out of the norm for what he would do.
Right.
So that seems weird. I'm going to approach this with a skeptical mind, and I think more and more people are going to have to just do that until some regulations are put in place. And I don't even understand how that can work. I don't know because we haven't figured out how to regulate just the regular fake news stuff. So the stuff that humans are generating that is absolutely fake, that is not true. 100%. Like a guy I know, I saw this ad that was really convincing. It was this product, and they'll do it for all sorts of products, and it was on Shark Tank, and it does this and da-da-da. And I was kind of reading, I'm like, really? This doesn't seem like something would be on Shark Tank. And I finally got into the article, and I'm like, this is all scam stuff. Like, this was never on Shark Tank.
Wow.
And it's made, they have some fake photos, and they figured out some stuff, and it was a completely different product that he was talking about. And I was like, did you read for sure? I was like, because I saw this the other day, and apparently this happens all the time. People are creating this narrative about it being on Shark Tank, and it's been funded by these guys and a lot of this stuff, because that's all it takes to get people to go, well, if they saw it and they like it, it's got to be okay. And so that it's just going to be that times 100, because it's easier now to make really compelling videos and photos and audio that can fool you. And so again, I don't know how we regulate it. I'm not sure. But I think maybe some sort of sign of there like a key or something that can be generated to say like this is human generated stuff. Yeah.
Maybe could be as simple as that. I think regardless of whatever it is, I think that it's important that we talk about it and think about this. Yeah. Like right now, it's all just happening and going gangbusters. And
because until it gets regulated, like and even after it gets regulated, like let's not act like people aren't going to copy. I mean, some students at Harvard copied ChatGPT 3 for like $600 or something. Yeah. So they already had it. So that to act like this, that Pandora's box is opened.
Right.
It's too late. it's out. Because even if they're like shut it all down right now, you don't think that it's floating around somewhere that someone's not going to get their hands on it, and then it's only people that want to use it for negative purposes. And so it's like we have to figure out some way to regulate it, and the people that are smart enough to have built it hopefully can start to work on ways to properly regulate this thing so that it doesn't completely go out of control.
Yeah, and I think on the like job loss side of things, I mean, as hard as it might be for somebody to pivot their career after they've invested a lot of time into this particular industry, like people losing their jobs over this is gonna suck.
Yep.
There's no way around it. But hopefully, in the end, we kind of level up, right? And we have more jobs that are adding value and doing things. Elon has always said that about advanced manufacturing and automating in car manufacturing and everything. Those people that were sitting there doing that job that don't have to do that anymore should now be able to go work on more creative endeavors and more value add things that they can do for society. So I think, always being able to pivot is important, but saying that to somebody who just lost their job that does something that AI just replaced is probably not going to help them feel very good. But
no, that part's just going to be what it is. And that's just the nature of technology and industry moving forward. I mean, it's just going to happen, and it's going to happen with this. We don't know how it's going to affect us. We're having these conversations too, of how it might have an effect, and it could. We just have to kind of wait and see. And if it does, we have to do the same thing. We got to figure it out and pivot and move to something else. Yeah.
So let's talk about a few of the kind of big picture benefits of generative AI.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot, and so it's this dual-edged thing, like it's not all doom and gloom. Otherwise, it'd be like, why are we doing this?
Right.
If it's only going to bring pain, suffering, and awfulness, like who cares if it's cool? Like shut it down now. Like this is not worth being out in the open.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of stuff. I don't know if we have anything.
Yeah. So I think
in our notes, but off the top of my head, like this morning, I was like, I'm going to try this. I wrote a post and was like, you know what? After I publish, I'm going to feed this post into ChatGPT and I'm going to ask it to give me a more SEO rich title for this. And so there's a whole art to building SEO rich titles
so that people can find it. I mean, that's what you're trying to do.
You're swimming in the land of billions of websites. The better formed your titles are, the better formed your URL and all that kind of stuff helps it rise to the top so people see it. And I thought it was a really helpful article that I don't want it to get buried. So I'm like, cool, I'll let it change it and see what it comes up with. And it was a variation of what the title was already, but slightly different enough that I looked at it and I was like, I like that.
Yeah.
I like how concise that is. So change that, and then the doc title that shows up actually in search has to be 60 characters or less. And so I was like, okay, well, give me the same thing, but 60 characters or less. It gave me 5 or 6. I picked one I liked, and I tweaked them a little bit, I haven't looked to see how that article's doing today, but that type of stuff. Those are the types of things where we can go, okay, yes, we can look at SEMrush. We can look at all sorts. There are tools at our disposal to look at for SEO.
They're complex.
They're complex and they're time consuming.
Yeah.
And so it's like, do I do that? Or do I write another post? It's like, so how do I balance my time with this? If I can let AI parse all of that data and go, boom, here are your answers. Wouldn't that make a lot more sense than sitting down and trying to formulate all this stuff on my own just because I want to be hard-headed and do it myself? So that's kind of if you let your mind run with all the types of tasks that AI can just kind of deal with now.
And Gabe mentioned it with some of these folks that he and I both follow, some of these business folks that are using it in Excel.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Think about a company who has these massive reports, right? Or these massive Excel spreadsheets that they have to go through and parse this data and try to, there's algorithms and things you can run in Excel to help you, parse data and figure out how a company's doing or whether you should be doing this or doing that instead.
Right.
And now you can let AI analyze all of that data and give you that report and put it in layman's terms that you can then go to a board meeting and say, here's where we're at.
And now you take that time that you would have spent doing that and go do something else more productive for your company or, for yourself or whatever.
And then think about drugs and healthcare. We've seen
my
it
gosh.
already with
and AI has been used in healthcare.
yeah.
for a
So
while.
the one, it was an NPR story several years ago, at least 2 years ago, that was about screening for lung cancer.
Oh yeah.
And how they were able to create this machine learning model that they fed all of these images, and through its understanding of the data was then able to pick out the images with lung cancer better than a clinician could.
Right.
There's always like I forget the other podcast I was listening to where they were talking about, but then AI starts finding correlations that aren't lung cancer or whatever in this
Right.
example. So then it starts spitting out like incorrect results, but then that's where the clinician is still like saving time. They're still able to go back and review that and be like, okay, no, like this is actually
Right.
what that is. But thank you for finding that other little random blemish that wasn't this.
Right.
Whatever. And then developing drugs and analyzing DNA and all of these things that take a lot of time.
Yeah, when you start talking about data sets and time, like that, those are the types of like lawyers, attorneys, like all the cases that they have to parse.
Imagine being able to say, go to this ruling, analyze that ruling, tell me how it applies to this case that I now have, and then
save you a week's worth of work.
you still are able to analyze that and see what
You're
it
still
said.
creating the argument.
Yeah, you still have to think about it.
Right.
And I forget, I think it was John Oliver who said, it's not like there's not going to be lawyers anymore. There's just going to be lawyers who use AI and those
Lawyers
who don't.
Yeah, I mean, and those are positive use cases.
Right.
Like the benefit of your attorney isn't necessarily the ability to go sit and study
No.
case law for hours on end. It's for them to interpret it and then
Make
form
a
an argument based on what they had.
Exactly.
And so if you take out all the time it takes for them to just I mean, we're humans, so to read it, understand it, and then add it to something like that was of value for a long time. That skill won't be as much of a value. The skill will be being able to take the end of that particular amount of work and take that result, and now you still have to do the rest of the job.
Right.
But now instead of it taking you this long to do it, it takes you a very small amount of time, and now you can argue more cases.
Right. And for them, it's good. And for you, it's good because their time is very valuable. And if you've ever had to go hire a lawyer, it's not cheap.
Right.
So if they don't have to spend as much time
Right.
to form that opinion for you, you've now saved money.
Yep.
I think the other thing that we've got here, and this one I'm not sure of. Bard was originally created to create poetry.
Yeah.
So you've got poetry, literature, artwork, music being now generated through AI.
Yeah.
I guess if it's still entertaining and pleasing to people, does it matter?
Yeah.
If it was AI generated? That one's weird for me.
That part gets weird because it's no different than us saying like, well, then it should be fine for us to let
We'll just
AI
let
just write our articles.
write all of our stuff. It doesn't matter. There's personality. There's like, and part of art for me is like the experience and the emotion that, especially like watching a live performance. I guess for me being a musician, that's kind of where I come at this.
Yeah.
And so if you lose that and it's just generated AI and it's just doing it for our pleasure,
yeah, it loses something.
entertainment, it loses something for sure. I don't know.
But I think
that's a weird one.
AI can help with ideas. It can help spur on creativity.
Or what about structuring a song or something?
Yeah,
like,
and you're just like, hey, I'm
almost
gonna feed it my song,
collaborating
like,
with this.
What are your thoughts? And let it. And it's no different than what a producer does. So
Yeah.
like, you're foolish to think that an artist, pick any artist,
Taylor Swift.
Taylor
Yeah.
Swift. You're foolish to think that she wakes up in the middle of the night and writes a song and then goes and calls all the shots and has it all produced. Now she's been doing it long enough. She probably does a lot of it.
Yeah.
But there are producers.
She's maybe not a great example.
Yeah, but there are producers
Yeah.
still that she
Oh,
will
yeah.
work with.
Yeah.
Like she's done it long enough to realize there's benefit in letting other people hear it and go, I don't
What
know
about this?
that.
What if we did that verse again here? And
Or what if we added this little thing over
Yeah.
here and maybe take out the bass line there and add, and maybe on that verse right there, instead of going up that pitch here, go down instead.
Mm-hmm.
Like that produces this. And there's this collaborative thing that happens that's magic with, and I can only speak to that because I've done that from a music standpoint, but I'm sure it probably helps with other art forms as well.
Sure.
Like there's collaboration that helps kind of spur ingenuity and creativity. And so, what if AI could step in that kind of role?
Yeah.
So like you could hear what it would sound like. What if I did this in this style? and you just hear it instead of having to like think through, like, what would that sound like if it was
and then try to play it or whatever. Yeah.
Right. And if is that, what's this sound like as a shuffle? And it can just play back what you just were recording, but now it's in a different style.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like those kind of things could be really awesome because
that's true. Yeah.
It allows you to spur creativity. The part of it where it just does all of it itself, I think, hopefully never becomes a thing that replaces
true
human
artwork,
art because there's just a human element in artwork, whether it's music or painting or drawings or murals or sculptures or what. Like, there's just something about the human doing those things that connects good art, I should say, that connects on a deeper level.
And again, it's the story and the emotion around it, and you know, knowing that another human created that is something powerful and can bring people together and and you know really be a powerful thing. So I hope that never gets fully replaced. I don't think it will, but maybe. Okay, so that's kind of some of the benefits. Let's kind of end on here some of kind of the ethical things that we all need to be thinking about. And I think the one that I hadn't thought about as much is the ability for this to invade people's privacy, whether that's through deep fakes or whether that's through impersonating someone or
like what Gabe was saying, you know, these impersonating college students' voice.
Like,
and,
that like, is... Because I think
those are invasive things.
Yeah, so often we think, well, I think this is maybe just not thinking through it all the way, but like I think about privacy and I think about like my data, like my stuff, you know, not necessarily this thing then being able to impersonate me or call the bank and say that they need this or that or whatever, you know.
People always think of hacks are always this digital, highly sophisticated thing where somebody's sitting behind a computer and with a hoodie on, you know, Mr. Robot hacking into my stuff. And if you watch Mr. Robot, by the way, fantastic show, a lot of his hacks, and they talk about it in that show, like a lot of those are social, social engineering, like social hacks, that you can't just hack through the thing. Like encryption's too tough. Like this stuff is too much to get through. You gotta schmooze.
You gotta trick somebody.
Old school. You gotta scam them. You know, we call it scamming back in the day. Now it's, you know, they got hacked, but whatever. It's all the same thing. You have to trick someone into giving you the information you need in some way, shape, or form to get past that one wall. That now your technical expertise can go and do some stuff. You can plant malware or whatever, that kind of stuff. But you need to get in the door first, and so. AI makes some of that stuff a lot easier, unfortunately, because you can trick people easier with it. And as much as, you know, we want to talk about the good stuff, like that's a scary reality. And, you know, and how do you tell people to, you know, if a phone call is coming from the number of someone that you know or care about, and they say, I really need money, you know, and I'm struggling at school and they're 600 miles away from you. And can you just send a check for a couple $1,000? It'll get me through the rest of the semester. What parent's not going to just do that? Like, you're just going to do it. And that's scary. Now, granted, there's some social hacking and engineering that would have to happen there because that check's going to come to this person. It's made out to that person to take it to a bank and sign for it as a different person. Like, hopefully the bank would check the ID.
Or like, even if you're sending it via Square Cash or whatever, it's all tied to somebody's number and their account.
How are they getting it deposited and all that stuff? Like,
there's still some other pieces.
But there's just easier ways to scam people than there were before, and it's just going to get easier, unfortunately, with some of this stuff. And I don't know how they can mitigate that stuff. I just don't know how, because a properly motivated person to scam someone. So if they knew somebody maybe that has that's going to a Ivy League school and has parents that have, you know, that are wealthy, and they're going for like a $10,000, $15,000 kind of thing, like, hey, I need some money to get through the semester and this is what it takes, kind of thing. Well, properly motivated, you can go find an impression artist that can go befriend this person and get their voice down and make that phone call. Like, so you could do the same thing without AI. It just becomes easier. So, you know, that's the scary part, is that, you know, used to some of these scams that needed proper motivation to be pulled off, get pulled off a little bit simpler. And that's it. But you couldn't navigate the fact that those scams were happening prior to this. So how are we going to mitigate them now? I have no idea. I don't know that you can.
But I think it's something we need to think about.
Yep. You just need to know, like,
yeah.
Be wary.
Yeah.
Like, you might want to call that person back.
And the next one here, is bias in the information in the information that is being generated from generative AI.
Yeah.
Because it's pulling from data sets that could have false information or could have bias in them,
or could have stereotype, or
Yeah.
could have bigotry,
and it's part of some of these models that have went full blown,
they're racist,
full blown racist, like pretty quick.
Do they become homophobic? Whatever the case may be, like, because it's picking up on the data set. It's just like it becomes what it feeds on, and so it's AI is the ultimate "you are what you eat" situation, and so we have to also figure that part out. Like, how do we ethically make sure that these things are feeding on data models, and who gets to decide that? Who gets to decide which parts of the internet are the quote unquote right parts?
Yep.
No idea.
That's
no idea. It's no different than being a parent almost in that respect. Like, I want my kids to be exposed to stuff that's true, but I'm having a hard time discerning most of that myself because I watch news and I'm like, you're clearly left-wing bias and you're clearly right-wing bias and you clearly want certain things to happen. And so, like, what am I supposed to tell my kids? I don't know. And so it's the same thing. Now you got this AI. Who's to determine this?
Right. You have to teach them maybe to discern information and how to
discern themselves.
Right. And how to figure things out. And again, that's like we keep coming back to this whole thing of being skeptical and being
and maybe there is a future where there are, like, AI is learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's figuring stuff out. It's not just regurgitating. It's not just taking this and then siphoning out information. It's part of it is that it's actually learning some things.
Right.
It's figuring stuff out. You can tell it to imagine things, and it's doing some of those things. So if that's the case, perhaps AI helps us solve this problem. Like, help us to find a solution so that we can cut you loose a little bit. How are you going to decide what's right and what's wrong? How do you decide what's true and what's not true? And who knows? Maybe on the flip side of this, we're scared that it's going to be biased and stuff because it's been fed biased information. Maybe it can figure out a way to do what I just said I don't know how to do, which is parse what stuff is actually real. Like, Google has tried to do this with Google News. Like, here's a news story. Here's 10 other sources.
Even so now, Facebook and Twitter, with misinformation and all of that.
Let's try to do that stuff. Well, what if it can do that times 100? Like, it's doing everything else.
Right.
Let's put that on steroids, and maybe it can become smart enough to realize, like, I see the bias in that, and I see the bias in that. The truth in the center of this is actually this thing.
Right.
And then it becomes a news source that's more true than other news sources because it has figured out how to get past the BS that humans put out.
Yeah, and it's removing the emotion.
Yeah, it doesn't care.
And
it's ones and zeros. Yeah.
Yeah. The as you said, the bull crap that's in some of the stuff that we put out as human beings, because again, we have an agenda and we have things that we're trying to get done. And this thing could maybe help us analyze that. And again, AI being able to analyze and parse data is going to be a way that it will help us evolve and be better thinkers and have better information at our fingertips.
Now, just think about that for a second. Think about one story like that has been spun. I mean, you literally turn on the news right now, probably whatever's on there is probably being spun in one way or another. And so if you were able to take that headline and then run that through generative AI and say, find every single version of this story on the internet and on television out there, find all of it. Tell me what you think the truth of that is.
What does it actually mean?
Yeah. What's the truth behind this?
Yeah.
From if you take it from both sides and mix it all together and every bit of information you can find on this topic, what's actually true? What's actually happening based on what you can find?
Yeah.
And if it could start doing that on a regular basis, then instead of it being like, oh God, it's going to make us more biased, it could help us, get rid of all the muddiness and maybe, diffuse something out that's worth something.
Yeah, that's true. I
don't know. That's me being hopeful about it.
Right. Yeah. The one other kind of piece here that I want to hit on is accountability. So if someone uses generative AI to create a deep fake or create misinformation, are they responsible? Is that person who told ChatGPT to create this thing, are they responsible?
Yeah, I think
so,
that's
probably.
part of it. And maybe part of that accountability is like the word's in it right there. You have an account. There's an account based on, we think of accounts like it's my Google account, but the word account, what it means is that you're accountable. Like that thing is tied to you. And so like you can't generate anything from ChatGPT without an account that is tied to some pretty secure things. And so if that thing gets out and this stuff is publicly available, you made that.
If the Pope and the Vatican said, we want to litigate that photo that went out, they can find
defamation.
The person that created that.
It's character defamation. Yeah. I want to sue them.
Yeah.
And it's easy. It's become easy now to find it. It can't be hidden under multiple layers. Yeah. And I know that gets into privacy and all that kind of stuff. But if we're going to have to navigate some of this stuff, like some of those privacies, like you shouldn't have the right to go, I don't think, to go and defame someone's character with AI,
right?
And be anonymous doing it. Now, I'm not saying that people won't figure out ways to do that. That's the internet.
Sure, there's
but
somebody already doing it.
But in general, for lay people, for most people, if they knew that there's an accountability, like I can't just go make something and throw it on the internet. It's going to have a digital signature that's tied back to me, and if push comes to shove, it will be tied back to me.
Right.
It's no different than criminals trying not to leave a paper trail and all this kind of stuff. Like there are accounts that have to tie you to that action that you took. I think that has to be part of it. It's no different than people that are in the sex trade and they have, child pornography rings and all this kind of stuff. They're doing all they can to not tie that back to them, but there's all these digital trails that get left and people get caught because of it. Like this needs to be very clear. Like it will be tied to your account. Like there's no way to generate stuff from this thing without an account that you're tied to. And I think it's a powerful enough tool. Like it can't be a new account. Like if you create a new Google account and that's what you use to generate your AI thing that you just went and made, you don't get to generate that kind of stuff until you've held this account, or like the account has to be a deeper level thing than some random, Robbie Payne 123456 at gmail.com. Like, and that's for other people to figure out and account level people to figure out. But I just don't think you can just go let anyone create an account and be like, well, they're accountable. Not really, because they'll just delete that account. They don't care about it. So that needs to be a real account, like some sort of thing that's, you make it once and it's tied to your driver's license or your social security number or something. Like it's tied to something that is you through and through. And until you have that, you can't go just making whatever you want willy-nilly on AI. And then once it's accountable to you, now it's most people, yes, there will always be a way around. There will always be a way to game the system. But for most people, that would be enough
to deter misinformation or deep fakes or whatever.
Law-abiding thing. Like people, generally speaking, most people abide by the laws because they don't want to get in trouble. And even if they had a tinge of going, maybe I could, the thought that, I don't know how to cover my tracks well enough to get away with that. Yeah, forget it.
Right.
And that's why laws exist, to deter that kind of stuff. Yep. And so if those types of things were in place, I think it would help deter the vast majority of people from doing these types of things.
And I think, again, in general, we're not saying we're experts at any of this. We're
absolutely not.
We are.
I'm just sitting here off the cuff.
Yeah, we are. Having a conversation about this and kind of thinking through it. And I think, especially some of these ethical considerations are things that we need to be talking about.
Yeah,
this is an incredibly exciting time in tech for the reasons you said in the open, because this is a new disruptive thing it's exciting. Yeah. It's something new that we haven't seen.
And the fun part about it right now is that a lot of the innovations that are catching people's attention are software driven,
right?
Which means you don't have to go spend money and go buy a new thing to go start delving into what's happening.
Yeah.
And I've always been a proponent of I think software is more important than hardware, and people can fight over that kind of stuff. But I think eventually hardware gets to a point where it's
peak
commodity.
Hardware. Yeah,
you've peaked out. But software just keeps moving, and what happens is software moves to another place, then the hardware has to
adjust
kind of keep
to
up.
It. Right.
But the cloud changes that too, and so that's why I love cloud computing too, because it democratizes a lot of this stuff. So this new thing happens. Well, ChatGPT is doing its stuff on their servers, not on your computer. So you don't need to go buy a $5,000 monster computer to use ChatGPT. It's happening on their servers. It's cloud computing, so
and it's instant. For the most part, it thinks for just a moment.
The URL and do the thing, and let it do its thing.
Yeah. some of you may have seen this coming, but this outline, not a script because we didn't follow it exactly, but this outline for today was generated with Bard.
Yeah. So Google's generative AI.
So this is a way that we think we might leverage something like this to, again, it's cutting down on some of the research time. It's cutting down on some of the basics of getting a podcast together for us, or maybe a video, or maybe a concept for an article. We're using this AI to help do some of the research for us and help us outline and gather thoughts almost. We still sat and had a conversation about it.
Sure.
It helped us kind of...
But it helped to put the thoughts together, like, because we just knew we wanted to talk about this. So I was like, okay, well, let's prompt it. It was actually Kenny that came up with the idea. He's like, well, you should do that. And I was like, well, let's just see what it spits out. And so
it was great. Yeah. You had to ask it a few questions, right? So you started with... I just
said, will you create a general guideline or outline for a podcast about generative AI?
Yeah.
I said, sure. And it popped out a bunch of stuff, and it was really boilerplate, kind of boring stuff. It's like, how about the dangers of generative AI? And then it kind of got us closer to this, and then I had to ask it. So it posed all these questions. I'm like, well, I don't have answers to... Well, I mean, I kind of have answers already to most of this stuff.
But we wanted to see what it would
I wanted to make sure
from.
I wasn't missing some technical things, especially like what is generative AI. And so that definition Joe read was what Bard gave us.
And like some of this was stuff I hadn't really thought about. So like it was cool to help us.
And so then I said, hey, can you go through and all the questions you put in that bullet point list, will you answer them? And it did it. And said, can you make it printable and easy to read? And so I copied it and put it in a doc, and I formatted it a little bit. So again, I did some work.
Right.
I had to think through what I wanted this whole thing to be, but I did 10 minutes of work versus an hour to prepare for this. And it's stuff like that can be very useful, very, very useful. It's a Spider-Man thing. With great power comes great responsibility.
Right. Yeah, there you go. But this was fun. This was, again, just something a little different that we wanted to do. We'll be back maybe this week with a news roundup. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out.
We're getting shaken up, and we're shaking it up.
Yeah, so. That's right. But that's it for this one. We appreciate you all tuning in and listening and watching. If you are watching over on YouTube, make sure to give us a thumbs up. Go down there and click subscribe, and make sure to click the notification bell so that you get an alert when we make other videos. Maybe kind of like this one. I don't know. Maybe Bard's going to write all of our scripts from now on.
There you go.
All right. We'll catch you all in the next one. See you.